All right. So the first building block that we're going to be working with today is component entry. Components for us are anything that any item at all. So whether it's a raw material, a packaging item, a finished good item, manufactured item, that to us is a component. Once you're in the component, we start making some distinctions between whether it's a raw material or manufactured, but they're all components, right? I am not set up as integrated here. If we need to, I can switch to a virtual that I've got a GP and SL and an NAD one. But on this laptop, I just run basic Vicinity. So for your components, they also exist in your inventory, in your ERP system as inventory items. You have to also create them on the Vicinity side as well. If you are brand new, we can bring in and do a data load to help start up that process. Most of you, you're already running and you're live, so it's more if you have an individual component, you've now set it up in your ERP system, how to bring it into the Vicinity system. So you can create just from scratch, and I'm probably going to use stuff like, we'll use BC for boot camp today. Boot camp RM1 is going to be an item that I'm going to be building. It must have the same ID as what you're using in your ERP system, if it is an ERP item. We do have a few items that never get set up in your ERP system. I'll put that in a minute. The class ID field is really for your use. In my demo data, I think that they have a class set up that separates out kind of our food items from our paint items, that kind of thing. Class ID for us is a reporting field. I know in GP, I'm not as sure about in SL, the class drives other fields. In GP, if you pick an item class, then you can assign accounts, you can assign units of measure, et cetera, based on the item class itself. That's not true for us. It's a reporting field. So a lot of times we kind of leave it blank when we first start up, and then you come in and fill it in as you find out, oh, I need a way to classify my items.
Going on to that, when I set something up in GP, I know that like if I were to type it in the component and hit tab, it'll say, hey, this exists in GP, but not in Vicinity, would you like to bring it over? But it doesn't bring over the class ID.
That's because our class IDs are different, and they are intentionally different. Because in your ERP system, it can drive other things, and they often tend to be accounting related. You know, we want this class ID because it gets this set of accounts. But in Vicinity, you may want a totally different class structure because it may be more product related or, you know, some other type of reporting need. So it doesn't bring over the class. If you needed something behind the scenes, we could go in through SQL and populate those and help you keep them in sync if that's helpful. But it's actually, for the base products, it's actually intentional that they're separate because that class ID doesn't mean the same thing, it doesn't do the same thing in our system as it does in GP. Okay. Right? The next field, however, is the exact opposite of class ID in that it is very important that it be tied to your ERP system. The stocking unit of measure is fundamental for the system. When we talk to your ERP system, whether it be NAV, GP, or SL, we only send a quantity when we send an inventory adjustment. We do not send a unit of measure. It is understood to be in the stocking unit of measure. So if in your batch, you've entered it in milliliters, but the stocking unit of measure is pounds, we're doing a conversion before we ever send a quantity over, right? It's not important that the text be the same. If in one system you label it LB and in the other system you write out the word pound, and for some of them you use LBS, that doesn't really matter to us. LB, LBS, and pound, we all know those are the same things when we look at them. But if in one system it says pound and the other system it says gallons, you've got a problem. Because what's going to happen is you're going to send over a quantity of 10. One system is going to think it's 10 pounds. The other system is going to think it's 10 gallons. Chances are, I don't know of an item that does that. So this unit of measure becomes very important. And the other place that this unit of measure can play a gotcha, I know in GP, I'm not as sure in SL or MAP. In the ERP system, you can change your unit of measure. In Vicinity, you can't. It's one of the reasons that we strongly recommend that you create your item first in your ERP system, then bring it into your Vicinity system. That way it brings that unit of measure from the ERP system for you and you never have to think about it. And then you're good to go and they're always tied together. All right. You can set up alternate units of measure. A lot of times in your ERP system, the stocking unit of measure is what you're going to count it in when you go to do an inventory. Makes all the sense in the world for your ERP system. That may not be the unit of measure that you want to use when you're doing production. So you can set up lots of different conversions here. You can set up a conversion to gallons on raw materials, would be very, very common. Check the cheat field if you're going to set up an alternate unit of measure. Look at this sentence down at the bottom. As soon as I key in a number up here and tab off this sentence at the bottom, updates. 83-gallon transaction will be converted to 10 pounds. Once again, I don't know of an item that has a density like that. But you don't have to go and divide this out and figure it out. Just flip the sign right here. Tab off and check your sentence again. 10 gallons will be converted to 83 pounds. That makes a lot more sense for most of our items. So just check that sentence, particularly if you're going to something kind of strange like cases. That's not strange. But you know, it's a good place to check and make sure that we're going the right direction on this.
If we're doing all of our items are in pounds and we use it, can we set it up so we always create the item in the same first and it's always in pounds?
You can. Yeah, you can create it first in Vicinity, and a lot of people end up doing that, particularly if they have their lab being the ones that are creating the items. But then a lot of people, they also have their lab create, and they tend to use lab numbers that aren't in their ERP system. And if you decide you're really going to source that item, it gets a new item number in the ERP system anyway. So you'll have to kind of play business process-wise to see which way that flows.
Is there a way to combine those? So say it does move forward, is there a way to put it in the ERP system and then connect them together?
No, they have to have the same ID. So if you wanted to, you could turn around and go put that exact item ID into your ERP system. And as long as you have the same unit of measure, you're fine. So you can create it in the ERP system after Vicinity. And just the one place in particular to watch out for is the unit of measure.
What about every product has a different weight per gallon?
This conversion right here is item specific. And so this is where you can put the different weight per gallon. You know, this particular VCRM1 item I'm setting up has an 8.3. If I go set up VCRM2, it could be 7.5 or 11 or whatever else. But you bring up a great point. There are some conversions that are universal. Another word for that would be global. If I come into my units of measure setup, for global conversions, the pounds to kilogram conversion is always the same. It doesn't vary by item. The pounds to weight ounces, always the same. Doesn't change. For those types of always the same conversions, I can set them up in this units of measure setup screen. It's called, and what I'm doing here is called a global unit of measure setup. When I do that, I will be able to use any of these. Okay?
I'm
A
sorry.
global unit of measure.
You did that so fast I couldn't follow it. How did
Sorry.
you get to that?
Will do. Setup, company, units of measure.
Okay.
Maybe I got there once. Okay. The top part up here is setting up a brand new unit of measure altogether. So if you just start your system, you probably only have 3 units of measure in there. Probably like pounds, inches, and gallons, I think. So you can, the top part is to create a new unit of measure altogether. This bottom part is creating the global. conversion. A global conversion is always converting to the system unit of measure. So the system units of measure for my system are LB and gallon. Okay, so I can't set up a global conversion between inches and feet or something. But I have these three conversions set up between pounds and grams, kilograms, or ounces. What you'll see when we eventually get to formulas and to batches, it means that anywhere that I use pounds, I can also use grams, kilograms, or ounces.
Can you change your global units for more decimal places? You know, some industries you have to be more specific than.
We only go out to 5.
Yeah, but I mean, like this one says 4.54.
Oh yeah, I could have gone up to the 5 decimal
Okay,
places.
you can.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, the 5 decimal places is fine. It's just, yeah.
It's just what everybody.
Yeah, yeah. If you need to go more than 5, which some industries might, but the one thing, if you do need to go more than 5, you might investigate, depending on what your conversion is, flipping it instead, and doing the multiply by, which would give you more, anyway, you got the math on that. Okay. If you run out of decimals, try flipping it. All right. So that is the stocking unit of measure, the alternate units of measure, the description, basic, training. If you set it up in the ERP system first, the description is going to come over from the ERP system. If you set it up in Vicinity first, you type the description. Even if it comes over from the ERP system, you can change the description here in Vicinity if you want to. If for some reason you have your description in your ERP system displaying what needs to go on an invoice or some other document in your ERP system for whatever reason, but in Vicinity we really need to display what needs to go on the batch ticket or pick ticket or whatever. This can be a different description if you want it to be. Very, very few people do that, but it is an option.
So if you update your description in GP, will it automatically overwrite? So you have to go in physically into.
The fields that come over from your ERP system, which are in this top section, the component ID, the stocking unit of measure, and the description. There are a few more as we go further down. Those that come over, they come over the first time when you bring it in, and then it stops. It doesn't do live updates. We have some people that, or some companies that choose to put in a SQL job to help keep some of these other fields in sync. Other people, and the reason the base product doesn't do it is they intentionally want it to be different, kind of like with the class ID. This status, we don't currently use the status within the product itself to control any behavior. Some individual companies use that status field to control whether something shows up on a report or whatever, but it doesn't do anything in the base product right now for the status. This lots require approval before use. What that does is when you go to do a production batch and consume an item, normally you have whatever's available in your ERP system. So if GP, SL, NAV say that I have 2,000 on hand, that's how many you have on hand. We do have the ability to say, no, that's not what really is on hand. The only thing that's really on hand is what has already passed QC. And that's what this checkbox would put in place, is it's only going to show you what is available that has already passed QC. Other pieces before I start going through my little subsections here. The ribbon, if you're used to V2 and this is really your first exposure with V4, you'll see this ribbon. It's similar to Outlook and Word and all your products. So once you get used to it, the ribbon should feel pretty normal, pretty natural. But if you've been on V2 for 5 years, getting used to the ribbon you'll have a hard time at times finding things, and I will give you the hint, flipping the ribbon, and because that's usually the first place that it's going to be hidden. A couple other things to focus on here. I'm going to save this one and come back to it. Save for the audience. If I wanted to copy an item, V2 had its own way, and it was nice. Some people really liked it, but it also at times led to people copying things that they didn't really mean to, or doing other things to potentially, do interesting things with their data. So we've made it very clear. And so if I wanted to copy an item, what I would do is I would create the item ID first and key it. So this time I'm doing bootcamp RM2. I type the ID first. As soon as I hit tab, the copy function becomes available to me, and that's because it's an item ID that doesn't exist yet. So I can click copy, and I can go copy from VCRM1. I can choose what I'm going to copy. So maybe I don't want to copy the alternate units of measure because VCRM1 has a different stocking unit of measure or something, so that doesn't apply. Or maybe I don't want to copy the compliance documents, whatever. I can turn on and off these and hit copy.
Is that a feature that your administrator can turn off? Because mine appears to be turned off. I'm just curious. I could do it in V2, but
But the little copy thing,
it's grayed out.
yeah, type your ID first for a brand new ID and then hit tab.
Oh, so I got to create a brand new ID.
Yeah,
Okay.
type the item
okay.
ID, yeah, which is what's different from V2,
Just-
if you're used to V2 as well. V2,
Oh,
you would actually type the old ID first and then the new. This
Oh,
one,
you type
the new ID first, then tab and hit copy. Gotta flip-flop your mindset.
okay, yeah. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, I have it.